To the superintendent's workshop being held at the Joe N. Idlet Junior Teacher Education Center. I ask that out of respect to everyone, please silence all electronic devices. Also, if you have any material you wish to share with any board member, please give them to Ms. Milliman, our assistant. We'll take a break every 2 hours if needed. Dr. Moore, the floor is yours for the superintendent's workshop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me turn myself on. Thank you all for being here. We do have a lengthy agenda, but I am confident we'll be able to move swiftly through the entire agenda. The first two items will be presented by Ms. Emerson, and she'll take them together, A and B. And here she comes.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning. These are very standard agreements that I just want to take everyone through really quickly. Agreement number one, this is on behalf of Treasure Coast Technical College and Principal Christy Shields. This is with Career Source Research Coast. It's just a standard facilities use agreement. Career Source Research Coast Youth Connections Division occupies room 2201 on our TCTC campus. Youth Connections serves individuals ages 16 through 24 who face specific challenges, and it's an eligibility-based program, and TCT and Youth Connections have a great working relationship for student referrals to the programs, and so it's a great resource for us with TCTC. This is just a renewal for the 4-year of the lease.
Thank you, Ms. Emerson. Board members, any questions? Ms. Berenborg, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
And Ms. Rosario, can you hear me? Okay,
She's
all
not
right.
on yet.
Ms. Berenborg, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Emerson.
All right, the next one is also a very standard agreement that we have. This one is with Cleveland Clinic of Indian River Hospital, an affiliation agreement. They have been a great partner in providing our students clinical work based on learning opportunities for both secondary and post-secondary health science programs. It's just a 2-year renewal, and this agreement dates all the way back to 2011 when we first signed it.
Board members, any questions, comments? Okay, I think we're good, Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Seymour will now present items C and D. Mr. Seymour, go ahead.
Okay, we're good. Okay, Mr. Bella Nagy, Vero Beach High School golf coach again, got the great opportunity to go to Arizona, taking the golf team to the Brophy tournament. These students are great golfers and will have the opportunity to experience one of the nicer golf courses in the country. Also, they will go on a little trip, and they look to just learn a little bit more about how golf clubs and golf equipment has been built and designed in our country. So I think it's a great experience for these individuals. Okay, the next item, item D, will be safety and security. It'll be Zero Eyes. Zero Eyes itself has, we brought the information to you, did give you spreadsheets on the correlation between all programs similar to Zero Eyes. In addition to that, we did brief every board member and asked specific and detailed questions. In reference to Zero Eyes, we want to also just caution all that this program is a very confidential program. We talk about items that do not expose our current security systems. Thank you.
Okay, board members, first of all, any questions or comments on the golf team trip?
No, just I hope they have a great, safe trip.
Ms. Rosario or Ms. Berenborg on golf?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Ms. Rosario, are you good with the golf comment? Any comments on the golf tournament?
I'm excited that they're getting to participate. That's an awesome opportunity.
Okay, Ms. Rosario?
I don't have any comments on the golf.
Okay. The next one is safety and security update. Dr. Posca, any comments?
No, just thank you for your hard work on it. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ms. Berenborg?
No, it's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rosario, safety and security?
Yeah, I appreciate the hard work, and I do appreciate the cost analysis that was provided. I had questions about Centegix. Obviously, it's a program that I would have preferred that we looked into a little deeper. What was provided for us was information that was gathered from 2019, which was 4 years ago, and it's not updated information. So I would have preferred to have updated information on all of the programs in the cost analysis rather than just focusing on just the one Zero Eyes. I still have major concerns about AI, artificial intelligence. I think in my thought process, because the board members were not involved in or invited to any of the demo sessions that were provided for some staff. I think in order to make a really good decision on this, one that I would feel most confident about would be one where I would actually be involved also in kind of looking at that demo and seeing what the differences are with all of the programs. That was not provided. So going on just, what is stated, what is given to us, and the printed out cost analysis just wasn't enough for me. So I still have I'm not 100% confident in where I lie still on this. That is not to say that I don't think Zero Eyes or any of the other programs are important. We need them. We need something. And I'm just not sure exactly where we stand on it, though. I feel like we are a little rushed through the process, and I'd prefer if we would be able to take a step back and be more involved, because this is a big decision. It's also costing millions of dollars either way. Some, one program a little more than others, but it shouldn't be a light decision that we take as board members. And I would really rather we had a clear, comprehensive look at all of them. But here we are right now, so that's where I stand.
Thank you, Ms. Rosario. I did a little bit more research and talked with Mr. Seymour a little bit more, and looking at Zero Eyes and 24/7 and making sure that our students are safe, I think is the most important thing we can do. I did look at the funding on that. I know it's expensive, but I think every penny is worth it if we can protect one child at our school. So that's how I feel about Zero Eyes. I think it was the best of what we had. And Mr. Seymour, we talked a little bit about the other program and how many times a teacher would have to, alert and so forth. I just think this does something automatically for our students, so I'm okay with that part. Any other comments,
Dr.
board
Jones?
members?
Yeah, I would just say that I don't consider those two things to be in competition with one another. I think they do two completely different, unique things. So I would definitely support the purchasing of Zero Eyes. And I know we already have an alert-based system, which right now I think is phone-based. So we already do have an alert-based system to, activate our security system and protocol and lockdown. So this isn't really two competing products, in my opinion. It's really just an advancement and utilization of our cameras, really in a way that we can't do with manpower. So I definitely support it.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Moore.
Dr. Jones?
Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Berenborg, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Seymour. What exactly is artificial in Zero Eyes? Because I understand that it uses our existing technology we already have in place.
Correct. Yes, it uses a platform through our camera systems, and with that platform, it recognizes and detects weapons not people. It's also FERPA compliant as well. So again, I state that I don't want to share too much information about that platform, but be willing to sit with anyone and discuss and share all information. Additionally, it was probably one of the least expensive out of the other programs that were mentioned on that spreadsheet. It is less than $1 million.
Okay, because I was trying to figure out what the artificial part of this was. When everybody gets upset about artificial intelligence, I get that, because we don't want student names and information out there. So I want to make sure that it's just using our existing camera systems and everything else we have in place.
All righty. Any other comments, board members? All right, Dr. Moore, district realignment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we do annually, we are always in reflection of how we operate the district, ensuring that we look for opportunities to refine the system, opportunities to ensure that we're maximizing the limited dollars that we have in public education to ensure that we continue to lead the state in our performance. And over the last several years, by improving 16 state rankings with only one other district, a very small district, matching that growth, we want to continue to build on the momentum that we have established over the last several years. We have limited data posted so far this year, but the data that we do have is extremely encouraging in the growth that we've experienced over the course of this school year with a new assessment. So we're very excited about the direction in which the school system is moving forward. That as we reflect and we look at the financial reality of public education, not only within our county, but across the state and nation, we have to be fiscally responsible with the dollars that we have. We have to be a good steward of the money in which we are provided to oversee. And in doing so, the opportunity is now to begin to shrink in district support. And we will continue to shrink district support as we have created the capacity, the structures and systems to maximize our dollars and ultimately get those dollars closer to children. That is the intent. So what is before you today is a relatively small realignment of the district, but a drastic savings of over $500,000. What we are looking to do is to eliminate 4 senior level or cabinet level positions from our organization and give every assurance to our board members and community that we will continue to move at the same rate of speed or even faster in terms of our ability to make decisions to get them closer to kids. So we will reduce Assistant Superintendent of Strategic Planning, Director of Employee and Labor Relations, Director of Technology Services, Coordinator of Parental and Community Engagement, which is a savings of $570,000. And as we do that, there were opportunities to look throughout the organization to repurpose positions and realign services, ultimately flattening the organization, eliminating some of the bureaucracy, some of the red tape that is in place, so we can accelerate in being able to make decisions. So when you look at how are we going to make these modifications or these efficiencies, some of the strategic planning work that is done in the former office will move over to the Department of the Chief of Staff. Chief of Staff will oversee the strategic systems that are in place. A lot of the work that we do aligned to our strategic plan. Dr. Jacobs leads and will continue to lead. An evaluation of certain roles and responsibilities. There is a need to refine positions and create a coordinator of strategic support services. These are 2 positions that will be repurposed. These are positions of individuals who are doing work that was outside of their scope and ultimately doing work in which wasn't within their job description. So this is the right sizing of the organization and putting these individuals in place. When you look at Ms. Emerson's office, Ms. Emerson has done an absolutely outstanding job in providing dollars to this district, and we want to continue to strengthen that opportunity. Ms. Emerson's position will be shifted to an Executive Director of Development and Engagement. She will immediately begin work on bringing a recommendation to this board and creating our own district direct support organization, as well as continuing to enhance the dollars available through multiple sources. As you know, she exceeded her KPI or her widely important goal of grant money by over $1 million, $1.5 million. She just shakes her head like you have done that. We also realized some of the CTE responsibilities that were under Ms. Emerson will move to what will now be the Director of Career Technical Services, the Director of CTE, Treasure Coast Technical College. The appropriate language for the technical colleges across the state is in fact Director. And we also want to enhance some of the services at Technical Coast Technical College by allowing the former principal, new director, to oversee CTE programming that allows programs to funnel into our specific technical college, maximizing some of those programs that we have available. So it just makes absolute perfect sense to align that work so we can make sure our technical college is being fed in the most appropriate way. So we're excited about that recommendation. When you look at the Office of Curriculum Instruction, the data department and office will now fall under curriculum and instruction. Some of the systems that we have created in data, we are really leading the state and nation in this work. We have gone from data not being strategically used for data being in absolutely all conversations embedded throughout our strategic plan. It is the foundation of all conversations that we have. And as a result, we will be modifying one job to create a data analyst project manager, which the enhanced skill that is necessary to continue to develop and maintain these dashboards, as well as training the individuals to use them efficiently, needs to be the natural next step. So we're excited about aligning our data to curriculum and instruction. That is where most of the data is taking place, or most of the conversations are taking place. And Mr. Fagan's shop, which is the Office of Financial Technical Services, he will pick up the Department of Federal Programs, where it fits nicely because it is the distribution of all entitlements, Title I, other initiatives, and we can look to maximize those dollars by not having a siloed approach of where dollars lie, but to make sure under Mr. Fagan's leadership, we're looking at how every dollar is spent with his keen eye there to support that work. We have created, in the elimination of the director, the bureaucracy of the director of IT, created or modified 4 job descriptions: our senior ERP, senior instructional technology, senior network supervisor, and senior student information services. Those positions will be slightly modified, enhanced responsibilities in the supervision of adults, while at the same time ensuring that they have the ability to report directly to Mr. Fagan and other senior staff and cabinet members to get that information out, ultimately to accelerate decision-making within those specific programs. As we took a deep dive, as Mr. Fagan always does, we do have a computer programmer, which is student information, as well as the enterprise. Those are just simple modifications to job descriptions. There's nothing more than that. Under the finance side, Mr. Fagan and his proactive approach is creating a accounting and finance manager position. That's not a position in which we intend to fill this year, but it's just a job description that we may consider using in a future year. We just wanted to have it available when and if the opportunity presents itself. In looking at the distribution of work in terms of the program specialist for federal programs, the worker and compensation specialist, as well as a senior benefit specialist. Once again, those are repurposing job descriptions based on the reality of work that's being done, slight modifications to those assignments in order to ensure we are respectfully aligning work to what is actually being done within the actual job performance. The Office of Human Capital and Operations, that's Mr. Bass's shop. Mr. Bass will pick up principal supervision of leadership of Ms. Krista Foley. That will come under him. It is a very natural fit. Also some shifts in job descriptions: the certification coordinator, custodial equipment manager, job description changes based on the work that they're doing. The health service coordinator is moving from a 10-month to an 11-month position. That's to enhance supervision of our nurses that now offer in our summer programming services. Also, our human resource manager is just a simple job description change there, aligning the work that's actually being done, and same thing with the irrigation position. Those are just simple looking at job descriptions. Also, our nurses shifting in salary. because ultimately we need to make sure that we have nurses for our students, so that is also taking place there. Under the Office of Student Affairs, Advocacy and Access, we're aligning very naturally student services and exceptional student education. Those are very nice fits that fall under Mr. Seymour's leadership. And once again, 2 modifications to job descriptions there, which is the coordinator of mental health, job description changes to bring in alignment with the work that's being done, and program specialists for student services, a shift in ultimate responsibilities and reality of what's actually being done. In terms of school site shifts, very minimal. We have added a dean position. This board has spoken a number of times about adding a dean, so each of our secondary schools will have the opportunity to add 1, if not 2 dean positions based on their allocation of funding. All of them will have a minimum of 1, but I think at the end of the day, most of them will end up having 2, and that's the second will be based on a school site decision, whether they would want a success coach or a dean, and give them the flexibility to make that decision based on their needs. And speaking to principals, I'm pretty confident we will have 2 deans at each of the schools, just because that is their defined need. We've also, as you look at, kind of brought to the forefront in the assistant principal's job description, a harder focus in on instruction and being an instructional leader. At the end of the day, I had the opportunity last Thursday, I believe it was, to meet with all of our assistant principals and principals as we have begun planning for next school year. 1 week after school is actually dismissed, and one of my charges for them is to ensure that they're seen as instructional leaders, and that is at the forefront of what an assistant principal should be doing, leading a content area or grade level, ultimately to enhance that. So I want to put job descriptions and align job descriptions to what is absolutely the most important. So we're excited about this modification, these changes. We will continue to examine our organization to make shifts in responsibilities. This is the one time of the year that we talk about this at Cabinet throughout the entire year. We are constantly taking feedback from in various formats in order to ensure that we get this correct, and that the members of our organization are valued for the work that they're doing, they're heard for the work that they're doing, their job descriptions are appropriately aligned and compensated for the work that they're doing. So this is an item, slight refinements, but ultimately enhances our ability to provide the highest level of support for our students. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Board members' comments? Dr. Posca?
Yeah, thank you for that extensive presentation. I really appreciate it. No sarcasm at all. No, I really appreciate it, and I think in general it makes a lot of sense. You had a lot of processes and procedures that were really missing in this district. You scaled up to get the district going the way it should be, and now we need to realign ourselves and try to get as much money in the classroom as possible. I think, it may not be popular to say this at the district, but I think to most of the community, the district is seen in a lot of ways as overhead for the school. So we want to try to minimize our overhead to get money in the classrooms, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rosario?
I am very pleased to hear about the deans. Of course, I've been advocating for deans for quite a while, several years. And I just, Dr. Moore knows, I've talked to him about the amount of deans. What we don't want is to set ourselves up for confusion and certainly not cause more distress in the schools with students if there's just one dean and you have thousands and thousands of students, sorry. So you certainly want, I mean, in a perfect world, you would want one dean per grade. But I think 2 deans per school might be a good start, so I'm happy about that. There were several other proposed positions in this rationale that I question. Dr. Moore knows about it. I don't know. I do have a question with regard to the Director of Federal Programs. I didn't hear you talk about it, Dr. Moore, but the Director of Federal Programs is now going to be under Mr. Fagan.
Correct.
And My concern there is that I understand the financial part of it, but federal programs isn't just the financial aspect. I mean, federal programs has a direct impact on student achievement and classroom instructional practices, and of course, academic success. So how is that going to work out when curriculum plays a big part in the federal programs?
Thank you, thank you, Ms. Rosario. And the answer to your question is the systems that are in place. So Mr. Fagan provides the direct supervision, but the director has the opportunity in multiple meetings to meet with staff from CNI. The level of alignment and curriculum instruction, where it currently sits as to where it's at a year ago, and then even more from where it's at 3 years ago. Everything links back to teaching and learning. And if you all recall, the focus of the organization last year was to ensure that we had a singular focus on curriculum instruction. So embedding procedure or staff the opportunity to meet together to talk about what's actually happening in classrooms and level the alignment of support into schools is meetings that are taking place on a weekly basis in order to ensure that when the district, and you're right, when you say the district, it seems as if, we want to put as much services or support in school. But there's a coordination and alignment of support in terms of when we go into schools, the principal knows exactly why the support staff is coming, whether it is a district support from curriculum instruction, or it's coming from federal programs. So there's a level of alignment and conversations that are taking place to ensure that district support, regardless of how it's being financed, is ultimately being aligned.
I also have a question. There's two more questions that I have, or maybe opportunities for you to clarify. The coordinator of acceleration and coaching, it's a new position that has been created. Based on our individual meetings, the job description for this position is completely different than what was provided to me as a description in our one-on-one. So what I was told was that this position would be focused on CTE programs and being the liaison between schools and opportunities for students to engage in CTE activities, I suppose. But instead, the job description is essentially a professional development position for principals and APs.
So this is a new position. You are correct. This is one of the positions that we were able to provide funding for through Ms. Emerson's office. We looked at this particular position. It will provide direct support for Dodgertown Elementary School, Gifford Middle School, as well as Vero Beach Senior High School, and then we want to coordinate those services all the way through, ultimately to the technical college. That is the conversation that we have. This is the job description that we have created, and once we have staff come in and start to do this work, we will make sure that the job description is aligned to the services or support within the grant, while at the same time providing the level of coaching across the entire system to improve programming in alignment of services at each of those institutions.
But the mention of CTE is not in the job description at all.
Not at this time. It is not. But this is very fluid in terms of this is the reality of where we're at, and I think we need to step back and begin doing the work. And because it is a new position, and that's why you have these refinements each and every single year. We want to be clear and specific as to what we're doing. So if the scope of work changes, then ultimately the job description will change, and we'll bring that immediately back to the board.
And so I'm going to come back to what I originally said, is that was not provided to me. What you're saying right now was not provided to me as an explanation in our one-on-one. So somehow or another between Monday and today, between our last meeting and today, all of that has changed.
No, my line of thinking has not changed.
Your line of thinking, but what you provided to me in our one-on-one is not what shows up on the job description.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay. All right. Anything
I'm
else?
still yes. So, Dr. Moore, moving forward, when we have one-on-ones, what you provide for us really needs to end up somehow or another, when we're in our meetings, they need to be consistent.
Anything else, Ms. Rosario?
Yes. The Director of Career Technical Education and Treasure Coast Technical College. I have serious concerns about that position because the principal, who is now going to be director of Treasure Coast Technical College, she has a huge undertaking. The school is fairly new, it's just a few years old. She's got some new programs being developed. Marketing has to, occur for her school, enrollment, possibly even some title programs in her school as well. There's a lot that goes into opening up and really growing that program so that it moves into the second phase and then ultimately into the third phase. It hasn't even gotten that far. I mean, we're just entering into the second phase now. So to now add on to her load, being the Director of Career and Technical Education for the entire district is a serious concern for me. And I don't want to set anyone up for failure. Now, let me also say I'm not suggesting that we are. But I am suggesting that we take a very close look because we've just added onto her something that she's almost never in the physical district. Well, but then to have access to the CTE programs and support principals in growing CTE programs at individual high schools just seems too much. And I'm wondering if, since we're talking about the coordinator of acceleration and coaching, just switching that portion over to that position rather than having it remain or switch under the principle of TCTC.
So thank you for the recommendation. The actual modification to the director of CTE actually came from the principal herself. And there have been numerous conversations about how to actually feed and align the programs. So you can't do anything without students, and you can't do anything without a deep level of thinking on how to strategically design this system to feed yourself students. So having the opportunity to really look at district-wide programming to feed the actual college. We've spent millions of dollars in grants to ultimately enhance the programming at the particular school. We have to make sure that we have the students. So this is a strategy coming from staff on how ultimately to enhance the programming at the particular school while ensuring there's a high level of alignment across, in terms of what we're doing across the entire system. But we will continue to look at job descriptions, and as I said, if there's an opportunity to revise, we will definitely do so.
Okay. Ms. Berenborg?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you for my one-on-one discussions and answering all my questions. I did question the same thing about CTE, and I understand what direction we're going in. I appreciate that it's all going to be under that same umbrella, and I think she can handle it. As far as federal programs go, when I was in St. Lucie, that was definitely underfinanced because they do so much with grants and making sure that we've got all of the money in the right place. So I appreciate that too. And I do know that they work closely with curriculum because I did that when I was in curriculum. So thank you for all these moves.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. Anytime when you say we get the support closer to the students, I'm there. And I do realize the support we had from the district office this year with our scores, you could see the impact, and I appreciate that. I used to be one of those deans, and this was before Sebastian River High School opened, so Mr. Johnson and I were the deans for about 3,000 students, and I know that you're going to allow the principals to say whether we have a dean or a success coach, and I think that's good because site-based can determine that. When I was dean, the assistant principals wouldn't touch discipline, so it was hard. So you've got to have that fluid motion there. I had the pleasure of attending the manufacturing boot camp at Treasure Coast Technical College on Friday, and that was run by the Chamber of Commerce, Dory Stone, and Principal Shields was there. I see a real alignment with the CTE. In fact, I'm just looking at Ms. Emerson, at the signing of our students going into positions a couple weeks ago, the best thing I learned that night was Mr. Bass won a tap contest, but other than that, tap dance. But that night in the manufacturing boot camp, the alignment with the CTE and the Treasure Coast Technical College was absolutely phenomenal. I know Ms. Shields and Ms. Ward out there, the assistant principal, are always looking at how we align with our CTE, and I think that's great. And I think I asked you this before, Dr. Moore, with grants. I'm always concerned about the positions we fund in grants. So, the few grants I had, we'd have to make sure after 3 years that we could absorb them, if you will, in our budget. So just want to keep a close eye on that. But I see a good alignment here, and as Dr. Posca said, looking at saving the money and putting it where our students are, it'll just make us better. So thank you.
Thank you. Following items, I think it is items F through K, will be presided by Mr. Bass. Item K actually is an item that we're going to pull. That's so we're going to pull that item this evening, so we'll not discuss that item today.
And if you don't mind, Mr. Bass, after each one, if I can get comments instead of all at the end.
No, she said the opposite.
After each one, I'll just see if
Okay.
there are any comments.
All right, so good afternoon. First item is the 5-year plant survey. This is an exercise that every school district must do every 5 years, goes in and validates our facilities, square footage, the condition of them, and then goes through and makes any recommendations for modifications in our schools. We contract with a vendor to come in and do this. And there it is for you. Any questions?
I don't have anything.
Board
to
members,
add.
any questions? I have just one, Mr. Bass. Mr. Bass, when I look at the utilization of all schools, they always range between 90 and 100%. And then on that last page, the 5-year survey, 20-year utilization, it looks at the actual utilization for elementary, middle, and high. And the highest one was high with 81%. Why does that differ compared to each school having a certain utilization? That's on page, and I used to do the fish report, so I know what you're talking about there. Page 99 of 99. The
Good.
utilization is different from each school.
So when you get out to the year 20, they're using the COFD, which is the capital outlay projected FTE, and it is a guesstimate.
Okay,
So
all right.
that's
That was
basically what it is.
That's all I need to know. Thank you. Any other questions, board members? All
I
right,
have a
Mr.
question.
Bass. I'm sorry, Ms. Rosario?
Yeah, it's not so much about this survey, but at some point, we're going to have to, I don't know, do another survey or get a consultant or kind of figure out what's going to happen with the start of school times, because I know the change in new legislation. I know we have a couple of years still before we're required to actually change start times. But how would that play into a survey such as this?
So through the chair, it really wouldn't factor into this. This is just the facilities, the structures of our schools and our ancillary buildings. But going to what you had mentioned about the start times, I'm really anticipating the proviso language coming out to that bill, which will give us a little more insight as to how we are supposed to maneuver through that. Once we get that, which should be later this summer, then we do need to look at that, because that is going to be a major undertaking.
Yeah, and I think there was I think it was with myself, I don't know exactly which board it was, because we've already undergone a couple, but I know for sure that we talked about it even when Miss Justice was on the board during her time. She mentioned it. It was something that I believe at the time, if I remember correctly, the prior board actually hired a consultant, and they had some recommendations on how that would look, and the process was pretty in-depth in that they did some town halls. Obviously, you got to get parental involvement, and there was some pushback on the start times because because of siblings, I believe. I don't even think it was primarily a bus issue. And I may have all the details completely wrong because I know I wasn't on the board at that time, just trying to recall the conversations. So I'm wondering if we need to start that process kind of soon, sometime in the near future, because it will be quite lengthy.
Yes, ma'am, it will be.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, Mr. Bass, fencing?
Next item is Sebastian River High School fence project. This is putting in a little over 2,300 linear feet of 8-foot fence at Sebastian River High School. We are, as we go through from the future on, we are replacing 6-foot fence with 8-foot fence where needed. So we can kind of contain our costs there a little bit instead of redoing it all at one time. We're looking at $108,000 for this project, and it is budgeted in our capital, or excuse me, in our security money.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments, board members? All right, Mr. Bass?
All right, next item is our fee schedule for our extended day program. We do have an increase for the upcoming school year, increase of $10 for morning and $5 in the afternoon. The reason for this increase is due to our added cost to operate the program. Currently, right now, we are going to be running at a deficit projected for this summer due to the cost of field trips and transportation. Next year, we are going to have nurses at our sites, which is going to also add to our costs, and then our salary increases for our staff. So we're looking at potentially dipping into our fund balance that we have, a pretty healthy fund balance right now, dipping into that upwards of $500,000 if we do not increase these fee schedules. Yes, sir, it is. It is still the best price, and it is lower than Martin and Brevard. We've got those two to compare.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. Any comments, board members? Okay, thank you.
All right, next item is a salary schedule for 23-24. The salary schedule mirrors and reflects the changes that Dr. Moore has presented in the reorganization. I'd like to thank Dr. Suit and her team for putting this together for you. Changes are in red, and there's really just two changes I'd like to bring your attention to, and you may have other changes you want to have defined, but the two changes I want to bring you to is on page 5, actually, of 28, which is the support staff positions. If you see, there's an increase in their years of service, cost per hour, or salary per hour. This is due to the 1% increase that went ahead and was issued to CWA. And then the second item, which I'm really excited about, is just below it. We have negotiated with CWA a increase in the LPN salary range and the RN salary range. We were losing nurses just as quick as we could hire them just because we were not competitive. These numbers are more competitive, but they're still not what a nurse could probably get if they went out into the market, or even a traveling nurse. So two of the areas that I really wanted to highlight to you on the salary schedule.
Thank you, board members. Any questions? Ms. Rosario?
I have it. Let me pull up my bookmarks. Give me 1 second. I had a question with work my way from down page 27.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Let me know if you're there. There is it says, it's in red, next to school board is in black, and then in red it says negotiation, scribe assistant supplement. What is being crossed out is secretary. It seems like is being added is scribe assistant. What is being crossed out is $500 per team, and then there is a price there of $3,000.
Yes, ma'am. This is for the individual. It's a supplement to them for the additional work that they do when we do negotiations, creating MOUs, all of our bargaining sessions that we have.
Who is this person? Who is the scribe assistant?
This is Marie Carrera, my executive assistant.
So how did we get from $500 to $3,000 for your executive assistant to do these negotiations?
The it was getting paid at $500 per semester per team, which would be $1,000, and be
Right.
$2,000 for the year. And we increased that due to the added amount of time that she's having to spend doing this, and with the elimination of the labor relations director position also. And through impact bargaining is another item too.
So $500 per semester is $1,000 a year.
No, it was $500 per semester per team, one team being CWA, the other team being IRCEA. So it was
Gotcha.
$2,000 a year.
Okay. Is there a detailed analysis or an explanation of how you derived, how you got to this number? 4,000?
Yeah, pretty much. We looked at the amount of hours that she was spending doing this work, and then how much time has been spent since the Director of Labor Relations has resigned and left, and we have not replaced that position. Honestly, this is probably a low amount for the amount of work that's being done.
Would this be, this is a supplement. I see it right there. Okay. Okay. I guess because there was no definition here of per team, nor does it say per term or per semester. So the assumption is that the $500 that was there is a one-time $500. Now that you explain what a team is, it would seem to make sense that that would be $1,000 for the year. Because there's based on what was there, there's what you're explaining is not actually explained here.
Correct.
It's not kind of written out. Okay, I'm going to work my way up. The next page is page 26. What under extended day program, effective August 1st, 2022? I think that's supposed to be 2023, correct?
Well, we started that pay August 1st of 2022, so it's still in place.
Okay. What is a student worker?
Those are high school students that come in and do tutoring. They go through our background screening process, and they are hired to come in and work with the students.
So students, who's the ED, what is the EDP staff? EDP is?
Extended day program.
Extended day program. So a student is making $2 less than a staff member?
Well, if you recall, minimum wage is $15 an hour, and we had to bump that up.
I know, and then we're giving staff only $17 an hour? Let me continue with my thoughts here. If we go up, if you move, I forget exactly what page, a support staff employee, not an EDP staff, a support staff employee starts at $15 an hour, 15 and 19 cents per hour. And a student is getting $15 an hour. So a support staff employee is making just about the same as a student. Now, the other thing that I noticed is that there is a substitute teacher with an associate's degree who only makes, let's see, student worker gets paid the same amount as a substitute with an associate's degree and only $2 less than someone with a bachelor's degree. Something's wrong with the pay scales here.
So for the substitute teachers, we had to increase that just because we have such a deficiency in finding substitute teachers.
Yeah, but if we're paying a student 15, I remember that, and I advocated for that, and we needed to. That happened last year.
So if we go up on the extended day program staff more, then we're going to have to hand that additional charge to the parents. So, yeah, I see what you're saying, 17 versus 15 as a student. And I will just say this for our students, the work that those students do, and Barbara Musselwhite and Dr. Long and their team, they identify these students to come in. The work that they do is quality work. So I don't want to take away from the work that they are doing. And, you know, we could go up on the extended day program staff, but we're going to have to transfer that cost to parents. Again, going back, we're going to be running about a $500,000 deficit for next year projected out if we don't increase the prices now for this upcoming year, if we continued on at what we're doing now.
Yeah, not unless the board makes this a priority, because if this is on our budget or in our budget as a board priority, then that's not necessarily the case. You know, we get to decide what is a priority item or not. I just think that the salary comparisons here just seem completely not right. Something's wrong. Something's off. And I think we need to really look at this. I have this same page, a little bit just above the line that says extended day program. It says doctoral level student is making $9 an hour. A doctoral level student is making $9 an hour, but a student worker is making $15 an hour.
What page is that on?
The same page.
A doctoral student.
Doctoral level student, $9 an hour.
Interim school psychologist?
Yeah, underneath that, interim school psychologist, doctoral level student is making $9 an hour.
Yeah, it's part of their internship. They're not a full-time employee.
Well, neither is a student.
I'm going to defer to Dr. Jacobs on this one for a little more explanation.
Good afternoon. This particular item refers to an intern school psychologist. So as part of their graduate coursework, they're required to do a year-long internship. There are a number of districts in the state of Florida that do not pay intern school psychologists any type of stipend due to budgetary constraints. However, they are required to do this one-year internship in order to graduate, and we pay $9 an hour just to supplement their income while they're doing their education.
But the line above it says specialist level student is getting current minimum wage. So the minimum wage is greater than $9 an hour. A doctoral student, I'm assuming a doctoral student what's the difference between specialist and doctoral student?
So a specialist level student is a student that completes 2 years of coursework plus an internship, and a doctoral level student completes 4 years of coursework plus an internship. So they would be a higher level student than a specialist level student.
But minimum wage is more than $9 an hour.
I'm not sure why it says that then.
But they are not working for us. They're not our employee. They're their internship. We're giving them the $9 an hour, basically, and I would assume this started years ago, but basically because, A, we want to attract them here to do their internship here. It provides us additional support and help. B, it gives us the opportunity to see if this is potentially someone who might want to come work for us in the long run, but they're not our employee. They are a student.
I understand that. I'm not arguing that. I think it's a great thing that we're offering an incentive for someone to come here to become our interim. What I'm suggesting is there's something off with the pay scale. We need to take a better look at the pay scale, one in comparison to the other.
We will definitely go back and look at that.
Because the same way that a student worker is not our employee, but our student worker is getting $15 an hour, and someone at the doctoral level is only getting $9 an hour, neither one of them are employees. I just don't think that we're being fair across the board. And if I were a substitute teacher coming in and I saw this, it would be very concerning. So I'm asking for us to take another look at the comparisons, or we pay our support staff more.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Berenborg? Ms. Berenborg?
Yeah, a lot of this is negotiated, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's not something we can just change right now.
Would you repeat that, Ms. Berenborg?
It's not something we can just change right now, correct? It's negotiated?
Correct. A lot of this would have to be negotiated.
Okay, thank you. So I guess there's nothing we can do about it at this point. We just have to talk about it in negotiations with you.
The only comment I have on this is, I talked to Dr. Moore about this earlier. Where are we with negotiations with CWA? What's our timeline there, Mr. Bass?
We actually are negotiating with them Wednesday this week due to an item in their contract. If the consumer price index is over 5% in the identified area was the Tampa region, then we would reopen that for negotiations after June 1st. And we've got that scheduled for Wednesday this week.
Thank you. All right, on to the next one, the updated one, review of the salary schedule, Mr. Bass?
That's what we just did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the next one on my list is the Early Learning Coalition
Yes.
agreement. This is to supplement the cost of parents sending their students to extended VPK. So VPK program is only funded for half the day. It's been like that forever, as long as I can remember. And a lot of parents that send their pre-K age child to our VPKs, that is not sufficient in the time that they need them to be at school due to them being at work and what have you. So for over 25 years across the state, you have Early Learning Coalition groups that go in and they subsidize the cost to send these kids to the full day VPK. It's based on a sliding scale on the parent's income. So this agreement allows for us to utilize that money for our parents to be able to hopefully, nullify any additional costs. So, in some cases, it's as low as $1 a day that parents have to pay.
Right. Thank you. Dr. Posca? Ms. Berenborg, any comments?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rosario? Okay, Ms. Rosario, any comments? Okay, I have none. Go ahead, Mr. Bass.
Now I believe this pass is done. Item K will be pulled tonight
That's right,
during
okay.
consent. We now move on to Dr. Jacobs, who will present entitlements.
So the item that will be presented to you tonight is customarily presented to the board either in June or July. It's a request for authorization to receive grants. We have coming from 13 programs. The majority of these grants are entitlement grants, and there's a couple of competitive discretionary grants, and they total approximately $13.7 million, and they support the work of various departments in our district.
Okay, Dr. Posca, good. Ms. Rosario? Ms. Rosario? Ms. Berenborg, anything on the grants?
No, thank you very much for getting the grant.
All right, now moving on, Mr. Fagan has items, let's speak with Ms. Becerra first.
Through the chair, good afternoon, board members. Last month, I believe you were briefed on K-12 Stride. It's a virtual instruction provider during your individual board briefings. This provider is on the Florida Department of Education's list of approved providers. It is standards-based, it's aligned to the Florida standards, and it serves our Indian River Virtual School students from kindergarten through 12th grade. Any questions?
Dr. Posca, Ms. Berenborg? Ms. Rosario?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Sorry,
I already
thank you.
asked them.
Ms. Rosario? I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Now we get to Mr. Fagan, who will present items N. We'll do that one last, all the way through Mr. Fagan, W. X.
To the chairs of the board members, good afternoon. Yes, we'll pause on N, which is the LOI for the consultant until Ms. Rosario comes back, if she has any questions on that.
She just said that she had to step out. I have an email. She'll be back in 1 hour, so.
Okay. The next item is review approval for reoccurring critical district-wide expenditures. This is annually we bring to the board. These are items we need to buy throughout the year to make sure school operations are functioning in the schools and students have what they need, such as computers, milk, transportation, fuel, stuff like that. Any questions?
Any comments, Ms. Berenborg?
I'm great, thank you.
Dr. Posca? No? Recurring, we know they're coming every year. Thank you, Mr. Fagan. Next one?
Excuse me, next item is annual inventory. This is basically the reporting of missing items. Annually, we go out and check all the inventory. Sometimes things come up missing. They are not reported as when they're disposed of correctly, so this is a list of all those items that are missing.
Okay, I know it well, annual inventory, really well. Dr. Posca? Ms. Berenborg? Good, 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 good. Thank you. Next one?
Next item is disposal of surplus property. Annually, we bring in property that is no longer its useful life, and we are moving it out of the district. A lot of items go out for gov. Deals to be disposed of. This item, you might see a lot of items from the Public Information Office. This is where we upgraded a lot of technology and information in this office, in this building, and others, and so you'll see a lot of those items as well. There are also some not on there. Okay. That's it. Okay. Anything? Any questions on that?
Any questions on inventory?
I like
Dr.
the
Posca?
1 gallon bottle of hand sanitizer.
It's expired, sir. And
Thank
get
you.
rid of it.
Ms. Berenborg? I'm good too. Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Berenborg. Sorry. I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Fagan.
Next item is review of Go Guardian. This is a software system where the teacher can see exactly what the students are doing online each and every day that they're there at the school. It's an ongoing contract. Any questions?
Just one question, Mr. Fagan. The Go Guardian, I mean, it has good filters, so our kids are not seeing things they shouldn't see.
Correction. There's another program that scans what they go on the internet to see. This basically lets the teacher see exactly what they're doing.
All right,
The
got
other
it.
system will flag if they go somewhere they're
Got
not
it.
supposed to. This makes sure they're on their task, not doing another
Correct.
teacher's task.
Have we had good results from the teachers? They like it?
Yes,
as far
yes,
as-
ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am. We always
Thank
check
you.
with them before we knew any application.
thank you.
Next item is the purchase of Chromebooks and protective cases. This is the ongoing cycle of refreshing units. Once they become end of useful life, we refresh them to maintain the maintenance.
Dr. Posca, Ms. Berenborg? Is that every 5 years that we update them now?
What we do now is do every grade level every 5 years. So
Got it.
instead of everything at 5 years, we stagger to make the
Good.
impact a little bit less.
Thank you, sir. Go on.
Next one is Microsoft support. This is 24/7 support for the IT department through Microsoft for any issues that come up regarding Microsoft in the district.
Ms. Berenborg? Dr. Posca?
That's fine, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Berenborg. I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Fagan.
Next item is approximately 50 interactive panels at Sebastian River High School. Vero Beach got about 50 last year. This is a continued implementation of upgrading primarily science and math with these interactive panels.
I guess the only thing I would add is I hope that we give the opportunity for the IT department to really go through this in private with the teachers so they can get the most out of them. Because sometimes some of these teachers, they don't really they're not very skilled with that piece of equipment.
Through the chair, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. One of our staff is extremely dedicated to that function. If you don't want the unit in your classroom for whatever reason, then we won't enforce it upon you, but if you do have it, you will be highly trained on it.
Good, good. Okay. All right.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Fagan.
Next item is student identification cards. Every year, we update and send and print to every school all the students that are due to return to their school. This is their identification card to get on the bus. It logs them when they get on and get off. It also is used in the food service line, median, et cetera. We basically purchase and print all the students who are supposed to be at the school for next year, so the schools only have to do the one-offs. Okay? Next item is a fire and safety annual report. This is annually we report to the school district any fire safety violations. The good news about this report this year, the final violations were down about 56%, and also there was no doorstops.
Yeah. That's a miracle. Oh, the teachers fought that. Thank you, Mr. No, really,
Thank you
that.
for no doorstop.
There you go.
Ms. Berenborg's former principal knows that too. And just the amount that we got down after we had the item and how we fixed it so quickly.
Yes.
That's so important. Thank you.
Next item is the budget update. If you remember back last month, we went through the calculation of how we get our money and et cetera. One of the items we want to follow back up with the board was any ideas or suggestions they had for this year's budget, either specific items you wanted to see separately, maybe broken out separately, maybe presented separately, or anything to ensure it was funding. Maybe you couldn't find it in the budget book, it's only 485 pages. Maybe you just couldn't find the right page, and I'll help direct you there. But also to give you a little update on what the state has done. The governor, I don't believe, has signed the budget, or he may have signed it the last couple of days, but I don't know for sure. But to give you some bullets, is unweighted FTE in the state increased about 117,000. Of that 117,000, 82,000 is strictly for family empowerment. So 70% of their growth is family empowerment. For the district, we're expected to go up 500 students. Family empowerment is projected to go up 565. So all of our growth is associated with family empowerment. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. It just means that's their projection. Your base school allocation, your BSA, did go up 12% or about $500. But the state shifted things out of categorical funds into the BSA. We still did get an increase in the BSA. It was about 7%, which is good. Just 12 has a tendency to overinflate it when you shift a categorical from a categorical into that number. Then you compare it to the prior year, makes it look like you got more money. All you did was shift. Our net increase for the year is approximately $11 million. Of that $11 million, $4.4 million will go to family empowerment increase, because you got to fund that directly, and that's an estimate right now, and about a $1.4 million the state gives us for the teacher salary allocation increase. That's kind of a restricted categorical. It's buried in the funding stream, but you still have to fund it, so it's kind of a sacred cow. One thing of interest is that for us, our state funding decreased $6.4 million. Local funding increased $16 million. You say, well, how do they do that? Well, it's because your property values went up $4.2 billion, or another 16%. Same thing happened last year. Property values went up almost $4 billion, and the way the state does a formula, if you have more local money, they're only going to fund you X, they're going to shift more to the local side. Still got $21 million from the state, just wasn't as much as you got in the past. For the budget next year, a few points I wanted to make is, I know a couple of board members were very interested in performing arts. There was $150,000 funded this year. There'll be $150,000 funded next year. Some of the items that had been mentioned by board members in the past regarding things they were interested in. Well, of course, all of them are interested. All you're interested in student success, student achievement, but some specific things was Mr. Pascal, yours was safety and security. Those things are somewhat confidential, but we have that. Dr. Jones, you were primarily interested in performing arts. I know Ms. Berenborg was performing arts, but this is where we wanted to ask you specifically, what would you like to see, and how would you like to see it?
You're asking now?
Yes, and you don't have to give it to me now. We just wanted to make sure you had an opportunity
You have an
to
hour?
get us something.
No.
Sure.
Okay. And-
I'll just say publicly, and we can talk more in private, I want to make sure that we have a focus on safety and security, because I see that as a need. It's a big rock you have to put in the bucket first. You can have the best educational system, but if the kids don't have the safety apparatus that they really need, then we've really just created a dangerous situation. But I
Yes.
think we're doing a great job with safety. I want to continue to see that growth and development there and see it as a priority.
Thank you, sir.
I agree wholeheartedly with Dr. Posca. The first thing a principal would say is that we have to create a safe learning environment, and that helps us with everything when you're at the school. And when I talked to you about the performing arts and what we used to have in site-based budgeting, thank you for making that a priority, because we want to make sure that our students are safe at school, safe in their after-school activities, and I'll always say it's the best dropout prevention program we have with performing arts and extracurricular. And, you know, as Ms. Rosario said earlier, looking at support staff and pay, you know, we always hear from CWA and just making ends meet here. You know, it's not cheap living here in Indian River County, so I'll continue to look at that and ask for your support. Ms. Barrenborn?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you for continuing to put that performing arts budget line item in there. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, another item we have is not on the agenda, but I want to make sure we mention is tonight's on the board approval is an increase for 22-23, a 2% salary increase for all non-bargaining staff. It's about 267 employees. 2% will cost approximately $490,000.
Thank you.
Now, the only other item I have, but we're waiting on Ms. Rosario, was the letter of interest for the Parliamentary procedures consultant.
Right now, I mean,
Okay.
Madam Chair, we only have one more item, which is my
Yes.
item,
Okay.
which is the policy. So as you know, Ms. Barrenborn proffered, I believe it was during the April board meeting, a new way of looking at policies. The prior way was very complex for me, in which I would seek feedback from board members, add that feedback kind of through individual meetings, and then push it out. And then oftentimes, there were board members who had contradicting views regarding a specific policy. This puts me in a very awkward position. I think Ms. Barrenborn felt some of that, and she recommended a procedure, and we are following that procedure with these policies. I sent that procedure to the board, I believe on April 12th, and asked for any feedback. Didn't receive any feedback other than some thank yous, so therefore I am following this. Now, so at our last workshop, the board had the opportunity to collectively speak in response to each of these 4 recommended policies. I had the opportunity to work with staff based on those conversations, go through a legal review, legal sufficiency, in order to recommend policies from my perspective to you associated with these 4 policies. So these 4 policies stand before you now for your discussion, and I would recommend approval based on your feedback that you're going to have now, and that would come at a future board meeting. So with that, any questions, concerns, or feedback you may have regarding these policies, policy is the purview of the board.
Okay, Dr. Posca, any comment on any of the new policies?
I'll hold mine for now.
Okay. Ms. Barrenborn, any comment?
Yeah, just the citizen input one. I think, you know, go ahead and let's try it out, see how it works, and we can always bring it back to discuss improving it if we need to. Thank you.
I didn't hear which one she was referring to.
Which one were you referring to, Ms. Barrenborn? All of them in general?
Oh, I'm sorry, I think she was talking about
Citizen input.
citizen
citizen
input. I was
input.
going to handle that
Citizen input.
separately after
Okay.
this, okay.
All right, Ms. Rosario?
Yeah, I didn't hear what Mrs. Barrenborn said. So can someone just repeat it for me?
Ms. Rosario, she was referring to the public comment card that was also, but I was going to handle that after I did the policies, so that's separate.
Okay, so we're not going to talk about that right this second, right?
In a couple seconds, we will be, though.
Okay, all right. My only, no, I brought these were originally my recommended policies to bring forward to either review, to edit, or to add new, such as the legislative priority policy, which we have not had. We also did not have a mascot policy and the district strategic plan. Those 3 are new. So I appreciate the work on that. My only concern is with the district strategic policy, what was recommended. It has gone through several edits. And essentially, even though it says that the school board essentially votes to adopt the strategic plan. What is essential that I think we should continue, that we should add back into the plan, which was what was originally suggested, was the focus that the district strategic plan process begins with the board. We set the priorities and the goals of the district, and then we work with the superintendent as he moves to craft what the strategic plan would look like from there. But it really needs to start with the board, because it is the board's strategic plan. It is not the superintendent's strategic plan. And that's not captured in this revision. So that's the only thing that I would have added to it. We do have legislation. We do have statute that supports what I'm saying. In, I'm going to go to 1001.42 in powers and duties of the school district board. This is only one. I think there's three, which I don't have exactly up in front of me, but the goals and the objectives, again, begin with the school board. We set the vision and the mission, and then the superintendent actually creates the strategic plan according to our vision and our mission. That needs to be captured accurately. Other than that, I'm good to go.
Any comments on any of the policies? I'm sorry, I know you just got here, buddy.
Just in response, I'm sorry I missed the
I know.
the other exciting discussions, but as far as this is concerned, I couldn't disagree more with Mrs. Rosario. The sequence for strategic planning begins with the CEO. Mission and vision are one thing, but when you're talking about a strategic plan, it begins with the CEO. And the CEO lays out, whether it's a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan, in any case, it's going to be, the out years are always going to be constantly updated. And school boards come and go. We're elected officials. Some of us are here, some of us aren't. Hopefully our superintendent is here. He's a constant, or she's a constant. And that's the way, in my opinion, the strategic plan process ought to work. Begins with the superintendent, the school board reacts, you go back and forth, you set your critical objectives, your KPIs, whatever words you want to use, and then that's the basis for holding the administration and the superintendent accountable.
Okay, I just have a few comments on strategic plan. Obviously, we have a strategic plan with 2020 through 2025. It talks about our focus areas, our guiding principles, and our transformational impacts. The only thing I think is necessary, and I said this at the last workshop, is that the board and the superintendent will review on an annual basis. And even right now, we don't have all of our scores with science not in yet, so it takes a little bit of time. I think the first paragraph is all we would need, that the district plan shall be adopted by the school board for achieving the district unified mission, annual and multi-year targets, and guiding principles. Because once you put it in policy, if you have a word change, you have to go back and do it. And our targets will change each year. Hey, we hit this target, we didn't hit that target. So I would just say, my opinion on that first one is just having to have an overview of it and see what we do on an annual basis. As far as the other ones, are we just talking about that one now, so we go to the next one? Or Ms. Berenborg, do you have anything else to say on strategic plan?
No, that's fine.
Okay. All righty. Got the input, so what's our next one? Dr. Moore?
I presented them all, and this is just a conversation. It seems as if strategic plan was the only one in which we had specific feedback.
The citizen input, in fact, I looked at my email in March. I asked to have that added. And what I say during citizen input, if it goes from consent to action, you could speak at action time. So I'm fine with that one too. So.
And I just, for the board to discuss or not to discuss, at that last conversation, Ms. Shattuck and myself went back, looked at the policy that's currently in place, aligned, and make recommendations to the board, that actual form. So very simple edits to clean up the language so it's 100% in alignment. It is my opinion, as well as Ms. Shattuck's opinion, if there's any additional needed changes or what we're currently doing isn't appropriate in the eyes of the board, then Ms. Shattuck and myself will look at suggesting changes to policy itself. But this is the natural next step, so if there's any feedback, and me and Ms. Shattuck will take direction from the board.
Great. Any other feedback on the policies? All righty.
Now, the last item is, I'm sorry, was Ms., I think Ms.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms.
Rosario.
Rosario, I didn't see you.
Yes. There's a couple of things here. Number one, the last bullet or box or little check thing, it says, I wish to speak on a public hearing item. All the public hearing items will be in action. So if we were to eliminate that last little box and instead go up to the second and say, I wish to speak to an action item or public hearing, include that in one, because you're going to speak to one of those items anyway, rather than have two separate, because the public hearing actually shows up on our agenda in an action item. The other thing that I noticed is we do not have the language that is supported in our policy that it's clear enough on here, and not for us because we know it, but for a citizen to pull up to grab this speaker form. We need an additional clarification that instead of just saying you will have 3 minutes to speak on each item, I think it should actually read what is in the policy, and the policy just says persons may speak for up to 3 minutes at the beginning of the business meeting, during citizen input, or during an action item and a discussion item as indicated on the order of business. That is, quote unquote, what is in the policy. That just makes it clear so there's no misunderstanding with citizens when they come up. They know exactly what they're able to speak to as it is written on our policy. The other thing the last thing that I would recommend is that we put a little asterisk on the bottom that says, please complete one form for each item. It's one of the things that I know that several chairs have kind of talked about. I know in previous, and it's what it's supposed to look like, is that if you come up to speak to an action item and you want to come to speak to during citizen input, that you actually have to fill out 2 forms, so that for the chair, would be able to separate the forms, according to where we are on the agenda, and then pull it, for that particular agenda. Some people who misuse the form will put 2 items on 1 form, and that makes it difficult for the chair to kind of sort through and remember and go back and forth. So it would just be, I think, easier and just, clear to add a little asterisk that says, please complete 1 form for each item, or a separate form for each item. Call it what you will, but I just think it would be easier in the process. So yeah, the biggest thing is what is in the policy. Actually, the quote that is exactly in the policy says persons may speak for up to 3 minutes at the beginning of the business meeting, during citizen input as indicated on the order of business, and to each action agenda and discussion item as indicated on the order of business. That is quote unquote what's in the policy.
Okay, thank you.
And
Any
then-
other board member comments? Okay.
Mr. Fagan, if you can close us out on item N, which is just super quick.
Yes. Chair, to the board, going back to item N was the LOI on the Parliamentary procedures consultant. Just trying to get consensus from the board. If everyone's okay, we'll go ahead and issue that PO and schedule.
And I'll have Ms. Purcell will reach out to board members for a date.
Board members? Ms. Berenborg? Mr. Barefoot, any comment? Okay,
Nope.
thank you.
That exhausts the agenda.
Ms. Rosario, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's hard to see sometimes.
That's okay. No, I'm glad to see that we have one interest. As I meant, I mean, this is something that I would definitely support. What I would recommend though, because, you know, we know how slow things work here in the district and putting things off from meeting to meeting. And this particular is always, you know, frustrating for me, but in this particular instance, I would recommend that maybe we put off a formal training to maybe begin in September. It's unlike me to recommend something so far ahead, but in my thought process, we don't have a replacement for Nancy yet, number one. So I think that whomever we have officially when started, and you know that person needs some time to you know get acclimated to the district office, the rules, the policies, you know, get acclimated to our meetings, as you all know, kind of get settled in that position. And then obviously we have the opening of schools. We typically do not have a workshop in August. And so I think if we just kind of settle on September, it might be a good place to begin, especially with Robert's rules. And by that time, maybe, you know, we'll have some of these other little nuances kind of, you know, ironed out.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Barefoot?
Can I ask you, what is this quote-unquote training session going to cost?
What was originally
He was asking Mr.
proposed-
Fagan. Thank you.
Through the chair, it's $1,000.
$1,000. And how much time is being out?
Double check, one moment. 4 hours for $750, or $1,000 if in person. So $750 if it's done virtually, and $1,000 if it is done in person. Approximately 4 hours, not to exceed 4 hours.
All right, I mean, I'd find another way to spend that money, but it's fine.
All right, any other comments?
Let me just add, I think it would probably be easier to schedule and do it virtually, and I don't think it takes away from the educational session, because we're all coming and going sometimes, and it's savings of $250, so I think that's money well saved. I know it sounds like nothing, but we don't need them here in person to learn.
Thank you, Dr. Pasco.
I'd second that. I think that's a good suggestion.
All right, anything else, Dr. Moore? Well, then, it is 1:27. This workshop is now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.